So listen, I'm going to start by saying I'm very excited for this conversation because yesterday you gave really, really good, friendly, you gave really good vibes, and you're an energetic guy, so I'm genuinely excited for this conversation.
I mean, me too. I mean, you kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't aware that you do this, but I like that it's about mental health. Um, and I think I might have, some authentic advice or, just a perspective that differs from most. A lot of people are not and don't want to be held accountable for what they say.
Mm.
Um, in terms of, you know, when it comes to advice or when it comes to their personal like attributions and trials and tribulations, not a lot of people really want to admit it, but I really just don't have anything to hide. And my own mental health has, some days are ups and some days are downs. And I think that when you go through things, especially the downs, that's how you learn to appreciate the ups, and that's how you really learn to mitigate you know depression, and you learn how to move one step forward at a time.
Yeah, I don't think that the ups would exist without the downs. No?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people in this life that have things handed to them, right? And then you don't have any value. Things don't have value when things are handed to you. If you're running a marathon and you were able to sit out the entire marathon, everybody else had to run it, and they just handed you the trophy, you wouldn't value that
Right,
because you
right.
don't have the blisters on your toes, because you weren't out of breath, because you didn't feel nauseous,
You didn't
because
suffer.
you didn't feel like quitting every other step after the first 7 miles.
Right. I did notice that, like, for example, like I tend to like vacations are a really good example, right? When I was a kid, my parents paid for all of my vacations. So I enjoyed it. I enjoy going to Disney, but as an adult, now I pay for my own vacations. I appreciate them way more because I had to work for that money to go on the vacation. You feel me?
Right, but even more so than that, you had to deal with and depending on what your business is and how many businesses you have, because I know you're a busy man, and I respect your hustle, but the more things you're doing, the more bullshit you have to deal with.
Yeah.
The more things you have to suck up, the more pride you have to swallow, the more ego you have to kill, and all of those things factor into being able to buy something nice for yourself. And people don't, and that's why they really always say, one man's junk is another man's treasure, right? Because some people don't value things, and some people super value just the smallest increments of life. Just breathing is to someone who has trouble breathing, who has COPD
Yeah.
or has cystic fibrosis.
Mhm.
Those are terrible ailments, and those people just want to be able to breathe freely. So I think that a lot of perspective moving forward in your life deals with having a different perspective.
I heard a great quote the other day. He said, we have 100 issues, but once you have a health issue, you only have one issue. Like
That's true.
if I were to get cancer, all of my other issues wouldn't matter.
They
Cancer,
become
all I would
minuscule.
want is my health, right?
A hundred percent.
I wouldn't care about anything else. Isn't that
A
true?
hundred percent. That's very true. That's why they always say money doesn't buy health.
Yeah.
You can buy band-aids and you can prolong things, but you can't, if you have some type of terminal illness, your life is in God's hands,
What do
you
you
know?
do for work, bro?
I'm actually in between things right now. So I'm focusing on this first event, and I'm trying to build it into, something cool, something different. I think that a lot of events are about experiences. They're about creating experiences. If you go to a Cars and Coffee for set, for example,
Mhm.
and your experience just in a different location is basically the same. You don't walk away from it, or you don't drive away from it, thinking, wow, that was really different. I had an amazing time. I spoke to cool people, like-minded individuals, and I met some different people with a different perspective. And and it was hospitable, and there was a lot of camaraderie. Car people often say the best part of an event is the drive to and the drive back,
That's interesting. Why is that?
because you're with like-minded people and you're experienced, like you're on the highway together, and then you pull over at a gas station. You kind of got like your own thing, but you're talking to everybody. And real car people love driving. No matter what it is, they love driving.
Yeah, so
So that's
that was
go
actually my
ahead.
first car event yesterday. I've never been to a car event. So you said that you're gonna start an event. What are you like
Correct.
an event planner?
I have done events. I was like I was the director of special events for Porsche here in Connecticut pre-COVID. And then COVID happened and there was no events. But I have put on many events for different companies that I've worked for over the years. And I like it. I like it. You bring people together and you create something cool. And really, that's the goal in life, right? Is to do cool shit with cool people.
Well, so yeah, so you mentioned the word goal, which is funny because I was about to ask you, what are your goals?
I mean, if I have to be really honest, and I still, I'm 51, I still don't know how I'm going to get there. I'm sure it'll be some unorthodox way, but I'd like to be a nighttime talk show host
Ooh, who's your
because I think
favorite?
it used to be David Letterman, but also because he was a car guy and he used to talk about driving down from Connecticut to New York every day and getting caught at 130 miles an hour speeding and whatnot. He had a Porsche and he's had a lot of cars. But I love talking to people. I love
Favorite is
meeting new
Conan.
people.
Conan is my
What do you think?
favorite. Conan is my favorite talk show host.
Alcon is your favorite? Yeah.
I noticed that because you said you weren't sure how you're gonna get there, and I noticed that a lot of the most famous comedians, a lot of them start with stand-up.
Oh, right. I never a lot people have been telling me all my life that I should do stand up, but I don't know what I would talk about. I don't want to write scripted things, and I don't want to say the same thing over and over in different venues. I don't know. I would like to be authentic. I mean, if I could interact with somebody on stage and it could be something like, joking back and forth, like sort of like a roast, and then sharing personal experiences, that might be something. But I don't know if I would have stage fright, but I don't think I'm the best public speaker.
Or what about starting with like a social media like I know you have an Instagram, but what about a comedy page?
Uh, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I have some very funny stories, just from experiences in my life. And I know when we were talking yesterday, I said the truth is always the funniest thing ever
Yep, I
because
remember.
people relate to that.
Mhm.
People are like, okay, that's something I can relate to. It's a different scenario or a different location, but I can relate to that.
Yeah, and I did want to talk about, because I did notice that you're a very sarcastic person. And I know you don't really know this about me yet, but I also can be very sarcastic. And, to be honest, I've actually heard a lot of people with my sarcasm. Have you experienced that?
You've hurt a lot of people with your sarcasm. You
Yeah,
know,
I have.
I think a lot of it lies in we are continuously living generation to generation softer and softer and softer and softer.
Mhm.
I'm not saying people can't misconstrue your humor. I'm not saying that people may or may not be witty in that sense and they don't pick up on it the way others would. Um, I think a lot of things get lost in translation, and I think that we also live in a society where people are really offended by things that they think are personal to them when in actual fact it was never personal.
So it sounds like
So
you're very pro free speech, and you're very like, if you get hurt, like,
no, I definitely don't want to be offensive to anybody. I don't want anybody to hurt because I've hurt a lot, and I don't want to. I don't. Nobody should have to go through that,
mhm.
right? So, but I just feel like if it's, I think everything should be. Um, I think if you're going to take offense to things, or you're not sure about the intention behind certain things, I think you should ask, in the sense that depending on your location, where you are, what's going on. If the person who has a sarcastic point of view or a sarcastic humor outlook, maybe ask and don't be so quickly offended, especially if you view that this person is humorous in a certain way and it's foreign to you. Maybe you ask instead of being offended. I don't know. I do know that no matter what you are in life, tall, small, skinny, overweight, you can dress good, you don't dress good, whatever the deal is, somebody will be offended somewhere. And I think that that's inevitable because everybody has a different perspective and a different outlook on life. And like I was telling you yesterday, there's a lot of everybody you meet is suffering from something
Yep.
inside, right? That
Yep.
they don't tell anybody about. They don't
Yep.
tell their own family about. And actually, it's this is ironic. Some of the funniest people in the world suffer from the most mental degradation.
Robin Williams,
And
Jim Carrey, a lot of
Robin Williams,
yep. And I don't know if you noticed this yesterday, but when you were talking about that to Carlos, he actually pointed to me because him and I talk about that a lot. We talk, because Carlos, he has 600,000 followers and subscribers, and he goes through a lot of things. And one thing that we talk about a lot is how if you were to look at him online on YouTube, on TikTok, he comes across as the happiest man in the world.
yes,
The best breakdancers in New York, 600,000 subscribers, really, really good at dancing, really
sure,
positive energy, but he's hurt, he goes through things. And a
sure, sure.
lot of people like to look at those people and assume that they're happy 24/7,
Well, I mean that's one of the pitfalls of social media.
Yeah.
You put your best foot forward on social media. Only the things that you love doing, maybe like cars or events or girls that you're dating or
Yeah.
whatever it is, whatever makes you happy. That's what you put on social media.
Yep.
And we're trained as a society to not share our emotions because you know
Especially
um,
men.
yeah, especially men, but really now it's all in general, right? So like there's something called a social credit score, and companies are now starting to look into your past on social media to see if you shared one is political views, two is religious, and three is if you have a bad day and you say something that's negative or detrimental, that may be a red flag for a company that's trying to add positive connectivity to their company on all
They
fronts.
stalk your social media nowadays, don't they?
100%.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get worse from here, in terms of invasion of privacy. And you really, so as a society, we're really encouraged not to share our feelings.
Mm.
And my father and his generation were a men don't cry
Yep.
generation. And his father was tougher than that. And their father's like that. I'm not saying we're going through a breakdown of society. I am saying that, as things progress, like your music isn't your parents' music. Their music wasn't their parents' music. I'm already at that age where I'm like, nah, I don't want to listen to mumble rap. I have no, but things progress.
So how do you feel about men crying? How do you feel about that?
You know what? I think the vulnerability is the greatest strength. I think that crying is a emotion like laughing,
Yep.
and if you feel um, that you're at a deficit or you feel insecure to cry in front of another male, if something is bothering you to that level, that's an insecurity issue. Um, I think you should be able to cry. If I mean, when my father passed, if there was 1,000 men in front of me, if I wanted to cry, I'd have cried. That's it. I just I don't go by that. I think that you should be convicted in who you are and how you feel at the moment, and not worry about other people's perceptions of your weakness if you're not truly weak. And you're not truly weak if you're vulnerable. Vulnerable, being able to be vulnerable in front of other people is a tremendous strength.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I realized that back in the day, even when I was a kid, men crying was like voodoo. Like you don't cry like men. It was not socially acceptable for men to
At
cry.
all.
And you said that you were 51, which and when you were a kid, it was even worse. And I noticed that now people are starting to open up more. People are starting to be vulnerable more. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yes, but I think that there needs to be balance, and it's very hard to achieve balance when you're like when society is so wrong about something, and then they go to the opposite of the spectrum, like the other extreme. You really need balance. I think people should feel free to show their emotions, but I don't think that they should use that freedom against other people, if
100%.
that makes sense.
So what I'm hearing is that we should be able to open up more, but at the same time, it's also good to have thick skin.
I think so. I think, you know, especially in a New York City tri-state, any major city. I mean, you know, things soften up when you get into the Midwest. People are nice. They let you in. People know how to merge.
Yeah.
Nobody knows how to merge here. You know, there'll be a traffic jam for like 20 miles because nobody knows how to merge
You know what
because they
I
don't courteous.
You know what I've heard from many people? What I've heard from like four different people is that it's not that New Yorkers are more mean, it's that we're more honest.
Um, you know, I think that well, at least the era I came from in New York City was real like dog eat dog, and that's really what you know what I'm searching for a word. I'm trying to think. Um, that's really what put New York City on the map was that really tough crowd. And now it's, you know, there's a lot of money pumped into New York City. Now, when I was growing up, New York City was on the verge of bankruptcy.
Really?
Ronald Reagan, Ronald Reagan, who was the president at the time, came to the South Bronx and saw the devastation and the destruction of Harlem and parts of Brooklyn and parts of Queens and the South Bronx. And he pumped money into New York City to keep it alive.
Well, I heard that Giuliani cleaned up New York City really well.
Giuliani cleaned up the porn and like the degradation of society on 42nd Street. Yes. And he went after, you know, he went after the mob and he went after street gangs and stuff like that. He was definitely effective. Um, he definitely cleaned up the more seedy parts of New York City society,
Yes.
the underground parts.
So I have a question for you that I usually ask in the beginning, but this one it kind of like just we were kind of just went into it. But my question is, how have you been? And I want the realest answer possible.
Um, Not all days have been up for me, if I have to be honest. You know, some days are up, and some days I can't get out of my own head.
What's causing that?
I don't know. I don't do drugs. I really don't drink too often. If I drink at all, it's like a beer.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I'm all alone. My parents have passed. I have no brothers and sisters. I really don't have any family. I wasn't born in this country. Um, and I think that has a lot to do with it. You know, nighttime's lonely, holidays are lonely. People invite you to their house because maybe they feel bad or, you know, maybe they feel obligated because they're friends with you and you don't have any family, but their family will never be your family.
But you do
It's
have friends,
depressing.
though. You do have a lot of friends.
I do. I have a great network and my friends have been very good to me. But, you know, it's not the same. It's not the same and that is a, you know, that's a void that I work with.
Yeah, and this is a fear that I have because my parents are in their 60s, and I vo avoid is a really good word because when they pass, and they're healthy by the way, but when they
Thank
pass,
God.
I will have two huge voids in my heart when they pass, and I don't
Mm,
know how to cope with that.
mm. It's not easy. I will definitely tell you. My mom passed in 2012, my father 2014. Um, I knew my father was gonna pass. I knew like it was coming because he ate like shit. Um, and there, you know, I used to try to prepare myself. There's no preparation for it. It's it's nasty. I was very close to my father, very close. I don't know. It's nasty. That's what I can tell you. There
Yeah,
really
and
is no preparation for it.
not only is there no preparation, but there's no way to get over it, is there?
You know, they say time heals everything, and I think that in a self-defense mechanism, um, I think I block his memories out because when I think about him, I have to rehash like the good times. You always think about the good times
Mhm.
when you love somebody, you know? And yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal to think about the
Is
people you've
thinking about
lost.
the good time, is focusing on the good times the key? Like, is that the key to surviving emotionally?
Um, I don't know. And I think different things work for different people. I think you have to
Good
find your own
answer.
rhythm.
No, that's a great
Um,
answer. Great answer.
thank you. You know, it's like dieting. Your diet's not going to work for your friend.
Right.
You people, you know, both of you have different pH balance. Keto can work for 300 people, and the next person comes along and it doesn't work for them.
That's a great
You know,
answer.
so I think that I think you have to learn through, you know, through sorrow and through reflection. I think you have to learn your path and you have to stick to it. Not everybody's like, you know, just like everybody has a different perspective on things, everybody has a different coping mechanism, you know, and if you don't have it, you will learn it by default.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you because I think that's a really good answer that different things work for different people. You know, there's some people who marijuana works for, there's some people who therapy works better for. So I think that different things work for different people is a really good answer as opposed to like a blanket answer. Because that's actually a pet peeve of mine when people give blanket answers. So I think that's a really good answer. And it sounds to me like you were really close with your parents and there are a lot of people who aren't. There are a lot of people who aren't close with their parents, and I really have a lot of sympathy for those people.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think everybody's circumstances unique to them. Um, and I don't know, it doesn't get easy. It doesn't get easier, is what I was trying to say. Um, you just learn how to deal with it. You know, like your memories of that person and your love and you know, just little things that you shared. And you know, music is like a Stargate. I know I brought up that word yesterday. It's like a portal to like time traveling into memories.
Who do you listen
Like
to?
I could listen to a song and I could remember exactly where I was, what I was doing, what I was wearing, what everything looked like on the outside. Like I have photographic memory, but I could have my eyes closed and see all that.
Who do you
Your
listen
visual.
to? Which artists?
I mean, I listen to a lot of hip hop and a lot of EDM, and then sometimes some classic rock and some 80s. I mean, I was born in the 70s, but I was really in the streets in the 80s and the 90s. So that had a, you know, big influence on my life.
Who do you
That's the
listen to
old
hip
era.
hop wise? Who are your guys?
Favorite rapper of all time, Big L,
Really?
without question. And I prefer lyrics over just, you know, a great track. A great track can sell a song, can sell a whole album.
A great beat?
Um, yeah, great beat. Right. So, but I relate to, you know, lyrics that I can relate to. When people talk about pain, when they talk about self-doubt, when they talk about how they get through their days, I think that that's relative to everything in life.
You mentioned the word self-doubt. Do you have self-doubt?
Absolutely.
Why? What is your
Absolutely.
understanding of why?
Because I'm like Elon Musk in the sense that I'm constantly getting ideas. I always get ideas, marketing ideas, solutions to things, not mechanical solutions, but intellectual solutions to how to get through to people or how to speak to them in a way that they can relate to. And how to market things and how to sell things and I just constantly get ideas, right? So I might have an amazing idea that I know will sell, but then I'll get another amazing idea and I'll get like the whole blueprint on how to sell it and who to sell it to and the demographic and you know how much capital you need to start it or how much capital you don't need or who I need to speak to in order to align with to move forward on this front. The problem with that is that I don't know which way to focus my energy.
Mm.
So, and then, because then I start, you're thinking ahead. So then you're like, okay, what if I dive into this idea and I go full force into this idea, but this wasn't the right one? I had to go to the other one. So then sometimes I think I get stuck and sometimes I don't do anything as opposed to just moving forward in one path and seeing how that path opens, and where you go from how you started.
So what I'm hearing is that you are very, very full of ideas, and you are a man who sees 20 different paths, and because of the fact that you're not sure which path is the right one, you sometimes feel frozen and sometimes feel stuck.
Correct. Correct. And then the self-doubt, you know, um, makes a presence in my life because, if you don't do anything, if you don't move forward,
Then you
it
can't
becomes
fail.
it becomes debilitating because then you start thinking, um, look at all that time I wasted thinking about what I should be doing as opposed to just doing something.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if maybe a fear of failure plays a role
Um, I don't know if it's failure. Maybe it's rejection.
from who?
Maybe it's from, I don't know, from the general public. Maybe from, um, I like to do things that I know how to do. I like to be confident.
Of
If
course.
I'm not confident, I don't want to move forward in any aspect because I don't want to look stupid. I
You know,
think I think that's ego and vanity, but I think it plays a part. I think I want to do things correctly and authentically.
it
And
sort of reminds me of the person who doesn't want to go to the gym because they're embarrassed of their weight. Like it sounds to me like,
that's a major thing. That's a major thing. I mean, I lost 80 pounds since last summer, right? And in the very beginning, I was 350. Now I'm 270, right? And 350, I didn't want to go to the gym. That is embarrassing because people are looking at you like, yo, what are you doing? Like, you should have been here. How do you let yourself go like that? But people don't understand. And that's
I
also
don't know how many people are thinking that though. I don't know how many people are thinking like you should have been here. I think that people are thinking like he's doing the right thing. He's doing
I
the right
definitely
thing by
don't think
being
that.
here.
I think that people are very judgmental. And you say don't judge a book by its covers, but a book has covers for a reason.
Like
So
think about let's say you were in the gym and someone 400 pounds walked in. What would you think? What would you think
yeah,
about
but I'm different. Me, I would be focused on making my own grass greener, so I wouldn't be judging that man or that female.
But
But
see,
not everybody's.
I
You
think
got to
that most
understand,
people
there's a
are
lot of
like
people that
that.
are miserable. There's a lot of people that are miserable, and they're miserable in their own lives because they're not productive, because they're not getting off their ass to do the work, right? So it's very easy for them to judge. That's why when you go on YouTube, I'm sure you have a YouTube channel. You've
Yeah.
seen Carlos's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Nothing but hate in the comments
Okay, where
because people are miserable in their lives and they want to judge you because that's way easier than putting in the work themselves.
yeah. So I have a question. Where does your idea that people are extremely judgmental come from?
I don't know. Social media is a big one. Social media. I mean, look at the comments on there. Anybody trying to do anything right. Like there's a guy named David Goggins
I
who
know
is
David.
amazing.
I know
Amazing.
David.
I read his book. I follow him all the time. I used to think I kept it real until I found out about him. And then I was like, oh shit, this guy really keeps it real.
Mhm.
Um, and if you go to his comments, I mean, this guy went through three hell weeks and ran in the last hell week on two broken legs that he had duct taped up, and then did all kinds of military, like exemplary military shit, and Navy SEAL and Marine Recon and Army Ranger. He might not have been Marine Recon, but he was Army Ranger and Air Force Tactical Command. I mean, this guy has an exceptional military career, gets out, and then wants to raise money for the wounded, like for the families of combat veterans that have died in the field. Wants to send their kids to college, whatever.
Yep.
He's like, how do I raise this money? I'm going to start ultra marathoning.
Mhm.
Like I was in the military. The most I ever ran
Oh,
at one point was like 7 or 9 miles. This guy's running 250 miles straight. Like
250 miles straight.
straight. Yeah, it's called an ultra marathon. You got to look it up. I watch documentaries on it all the time.
250 miles straight
Correct.
with
The
zero
first,
breaks.
you can take a break on your own, but you're competing against other people, like other ultra marathoners. So there's not a lot of sleep. But the first one he did was the Badwater 135, which is 135 miles through the Mojave Desert on the hottest day. And he went 14 miles off course on his first ultra marathon, came back and still came in second place in the world. Like, that's not, I mean, yes, do you have to be in an incredible physical shape? Yes. But your mental has to be tremendous. It has to be like unbreakable because that's really the strength here is mental strength.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Sure.
What was it like growing up? Tell me about your childhood. What was that like?
It wasn't easy. I mean, I came here from Ireland when I was very young, and my mother was, I guess, anti-confrontational. My father was also, I think, anti-confrontational. And New York City in the late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s, early 90s was brutal. It was dog eat dog. It was sink or swim. And I didn't have that mindset, and I wasn't raised like that. I wasn't raised to fight back. So I got bullied a lot. And that, when you constantly face rejection, you constantly face somebody trying to pick on you physically or emotionally, or they're trying to manipulate you. It's after a while, it gets to you,
Who
right?
bullied
So
you? Was it
mental,
was it other kids?
yeah.
And what type of stuff would they say?
They would pick on me physically.
Was it like middle
So
school, high school? What?
it was elementary school and middle school, and then by the time I was in high school, I was already in the streets. So things had changed.
But wait a
But
second. You're a big guy. Like why you? Why were they picking on you?
because I wasn't fighting back, it's easy to pick on somebody that doesn't fight back.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like that was the mentality. If my parents had taught me, don't start a fight, but if somebody fucks with you, lay them out.
Why didn't you
My whole
fight
life.
back?
Huh?
Why didn't you fight back?
Because my parents told me to walk away.
Hmm.
Right? So when you're young, you're impressionable. And when you're impressionable and your biggest influences are your parents, what are you going to do? It wasn't until I started being in the streets that I had to learn, you know? Like I started getting arrested when I was younger, and in jail there is nobody to fight for you. There is no parents, there is no nobody, there's no nothing. It's sink or swim. So I had to learn. I had to learn the hard way.
Were you locked up for a while?
No. I mean, I'm not really going to go into that here on this podcast, but
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I had to learn. And then, then it's different. In jail, fighting is the currency. So once you learn that, you still don't have to start a problem with anybody, but you got to defend yourself because people exploit and take advantage of the weak and the elderly also, and women. Think of all the sick pedophiles in this world.
Sounds like you've
And
been
and
through a lot, man.
I mean, I have, but I think that's why I can help people because I can relate to them in their language. Because when you're hurt or when you've been hurt, you understand other people's hurt. Even though it's a different scenario and it might be a different level, it's never a competition. It's about not wanting to feel like that.
Do you have siblings?
I don't. I'm really like all alone. So that's hard. You don't want to burden other people with your shit because everybody has their own shit.
Do you feel like a burden?
Um, I'm cognizant of not being a burden.
I take that as a yes. I think that you feel like a
Um,
burden, man.
I don't. I don't feel like a burden because I won't let myself be a burden. But sometimes you really got to ask for help.
Hmm.
Sometimes you really need it, and but nobody's responsible for you. You have to put on your own cape and save yourself.
Hmm.
You got to take accountability.
And now the question is how do we connect with people if we're constantly afraid of being a burden?
Well, I don't know how to answer that because I'm not constantly afraid of being a burden to anybody, but I'm aware that I don't want to be a burden to somebody. And I don't know the world's answers. And I don't know I don't know, permanent solutions for problems that could be viewed as temporary. They say, you know, bad days are, bad days don't last. Wait, tough times don't last.
Yeah.
Tough people
Yep.
do. Right. So, just because you feel a certain way one night doesn't mean you're going to feel that way in the morning. And I think you should be grateful for waking up another day.
Here's what I think. I think that it's okay to be a burden.
Hmm. The reality is that nobody wants you to be a burden in their life. People want to live their own life free of that.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And at the same time, I think that everybody is a burden to a certain extent.
I'll agree with that. I'll agree with that.
Did did
Maybe burden is the strong word,
did
but
you feel like a burden when you were a kid? Did you feel like a burden?
no, I was super depressed every day, and I just didn't want to. I didn't even want to be here. Really,
Because
honestly, I
because
used
of
to
the
dream about
bullying.
UFOs coming and taking me out of here.
Because of the bullying.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
And
major issue.
and what did
If
your
you change
parents
the
do?
parents, you change the kids.
What happened?
If you change the parents, you change the kids.
What did your parents do about the bullying?
They didn't do anything.
Why?
They weren't those kind of people. They were passive people.
Oh, they were passive.
Yes. Anti-confrontational, passive people in a jungle in Queens in the late 70s and the early 80s. It was a different time. A different time. It wasn't, you could get in trouble just minding your own business.
Is there a part of you that feels like I wish they did more? I wish they were more
A
assertive.
100%. I wish that honestly, I wish I just had better guidance. My father was kind of busy doing his own thing. My mother and my father didn't have the best relationship. So she was kind of doing her own thing too. And, I don't know. They left me to fend for myself in a lot of respects. And, it was hard. It was hard.
And I think that's one reason why you're so witty and so good at comebacks because you went through so much shit as a kid.
100%. That's why the jump is immediate because I was in that position and I don't want to ever experience that again. So I'm quick to jump. But I had to learn in the last like 3 years. I've done a lot of work on myself. I did it without marijuana. I did it without psilocybin. I did it without therapy and without retreats and without any of that. Um, I have some good people around me who are able to shed light and get through my walls and offer me a different perspective and they were able to guide me.
Are
And I
you
had to
open
do
to a
this work on my
therapist?
own. What'd you say?
Are you open to seeing a therapist?
I'm open to any type of help
Hmm.
in any respect, from nutrition to exercise to speaking to people. You know, uh, because you can't. If you become pigeonholed in life, if you see everything your way, you have to be open to new stimulus, or else that then you become that old euphemism that says you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's true for a lot of people. My father wouldn't have changed. He wouldn't have gone to see a therapist. But if you don't bring in stimulus from outside, if you're not open to that, you're never going to learn. You're
I
just going
heard
to
a
stay
quote.
stuck.
I heard a quote from my friend. He said, life is not meant to live without help, or life is not meant to live alone. Like we all need help. Don't we all
I
need
think
help?
we all need people. I've watched a lot of documentaries on people that have done extensive years in solitary confinement, and they all have one thing in general to say. That's literally they all say the same thing that people need people.
Otherwise you go
You need,
crazy.
you need human interaction. Correct. I got a good friend of mine up here. He did 20 years, and a lot of those years, like I said, fighting's the currency in jail. You get into problems in jail when you're just minding your own business. It was like the streets of New York back in the 80s. Really, you don't have to look for trouble. It comes to you.
So I'm assuming that you gained some fighting skills.
I can hold my own. That's what I
Nice.
can tell you. I was a bouncer for a lot of years.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, I was in the military. I'm not going to say I'm the best fighter on the planet because I'm definitely not. And I'm not like UFC and, jujitsu and crawling around on the floor. I don't know any of that, but, you know, I'm okay.
I see a man with very thick who's gained a lot of thick skin over the years.
I don't think you have a choice when you're really by yourself, you know. I don't think anybody owes me anything. I think I really, I'm responsible to save myself, and that's in a lot of situations. And
And
when you take accountability for how you treat people, and you didn't take accountability for 45 years or something like that, because people get used to blaming others for the positions they're in.
is
And
that what you did?
there are extenuating circumstances. People are, there's people who embezzle money from you. There's people who fuck you over for business or for financial gain or popularity. Those things happen. But not everything is somebody else's fault. I think you have to look within yourself. I think you have to look and find the root of the problem and say, hey, listen, hold on. Because I used to treat everything. I didn't like the way somebody would talk. I wanted to fight right away. Somebody said something wrong and it offended me or I was sensitive to it. I wanted to fight. You can't bring that into the business world. That's not how business is done. I didn't know that because I didn't have any guidance. My parents were always doing something else. I'm not saying that they weren't great parents. I'm just saying that I feel like I could have had better guidance.
What do you wish told you? What do you wish they taught you?
I wish they would have told me about business, to tell you the truth. I mean, I'm a creative, right? So I don't focus on business analytics and different metrics and those kind of things. I'm literal and I'm visual. Um, and I'm a photographer and a cinematographer and I know I'm pretty much self-taught. Like I dropped out of ninth grade and I'm
Really?
self-taught. And anything that interests me, I go into like these crazy rabbit holes. And I want to know all about it. And I want to know how it started and who started it and where did they come from and how did they get to that point and what makes them tick. So I'm deep like that. And then when you get into all these things, like David Goggins, right? You learn other people's perspective and how they got through things and where they find inspiration from
But
and what motivates them.
it sounds to me like your number one dream is your number one favorite thing is talking. That's your number one favorite thing.
That's what I said. I said I love talking to people. I love
Uh-huh.
meeting new people. I like to hear their stories
Hmm.
because everybody has a different story. You
Hmm.
might live in the same place on the same block and still have a completely different story. And I think that there's I don't know 4, 5, 8 billion people on this planet. It's a ridiculous amount of different perspectives.
So when I hear you speak, I am sensing a very large fear of judgment from other people. And
Definitely not a fear of it because I've always marched to the beat of my own drum. I've always been against the grain. If you like pink, I'm going to like green. If you start liking green, I'll like blue. That's who I am. I've always done things different. And I didn't know who I was, I think, until I was like 31. I didn't embrace it till I was 40. And I didn't understand how to really be me in my own right until later on in life. But I feel blessed. I feel like robbed because why did it have to take this long? But then I feel blessed because some people never realize. Some people will never understand who they are, and they're constantly trying to fit into boxes and be a part of society. And they buy a certain car so they can fit in with a certain demographic, or they go to a certain country club or a restaurant or date a certain girl to please others. I've never had that issue, and I'm not saying that's an issue. I've just never had that perspective. I've always done what I like. And there's some people who admire my taste, and there's some people who don't like it. But again, we're back to, different perspectives, and that's okay.
do you care a lot what people think about you?
I am aware of, or yeah, care is there you go. That's a blanket word, right? Do I care? Yes. Do I let it stop or influence decisions that I'm going to make regarding my own life in an entirety? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Um, I'm not a people pleaser, but I do like people to be happy, and I do like to feel appreciated, not accepted, but appreciated. Like I know I don't fit into any boxes. I'm more of like a gypsy. I kind of hang out with these people for this limited amount of time, and then I go hang out with a different kind of people, and then I go hang out with different, and like I just bounce around. Um, and that's okay with me. There's some people, there's a lot of people that just, they drive the same road every day to work. They go and they sit in their cubicle, they do their work, they get paid, they go home, they pet their dog, they have a little dinner, they sleep the same way. I don't look at life like that. I don't want to be cookie cutter. I want to be me. It's just hard. I'm intense. I'm a lot. I'm a character. I'm loud. My father was deaf, so he was like deaf in
Oh.
one ear. So I'm just like louder by default, unfortunately. But and I'm a big guy, and that's intimidating to some people. I don't want to be intimidating, but I also have I'm armored. I'm armored up because I have to be because I'm all alone and because I'll never go back to being a victim like I was when I was younger. But you have to balance that out. I had an influence in my life that help guide me in the last couple of years, and she said, there's four burners in your life, like four burners on a stove, and you used to put like for the last 40 something years, you're putting the street on the front and your intelligence in the rear. She was like, you're older now. Now you put your intelligence on the front and you put the street in the rear. If you need to access the street, somebody tries you or whatever it is, you bring it out. But you leave that back there and show people your intelligence. I used to use my intelligence as like a secret weapon. I don't do that anymore. Now I try to share that with people and really just because I want to help them.
What do you
Because
mean you used to use it as a secret weapon? What do you mean by that?
um, I wouldn't let people know that I'm an intellectual
Interesting. Why?
because I would let people judge me. I would let people sleep. And then they would see who I'm aligned with, or they would see what I'm capable of, or my work. And they'd be like, oh, wow, I misjudged him. And I think that again, we're back to like, you know, books have covers for a reason. People judge everybody because it's easier to judge other people than it is to take action on your own life and make your life. The people who hate on others are never the productive people.
Mm.
When you're really productive, those are the people that say good morning to you on the street. They're happy and they're like, oh, he's doing well. I want him to do well. It's the couch potatoes, the people that don't get off their own ass to really make to achieve their dreams or to make improvement in their lives. And I think that we all have room for improvement constantly. Those are the people that it's just easier to hate on somebody else than it is to put in the work.
Do you think that the people listening to this, that will listen to this podcast, will judge you while watching this podcast?
Sure, but I'm
What do
okay with that.
what do you think they'll say? What do you think they'll judge you for?
Maybe that my perspective doesn't align with theirs, or it doesn't reflect, you know, what they think um, things should be like, or maybe because of my age. But all of age is inevitable. You can't do
Right.
anything about it,
Right.
So I don't worry about it. And I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm 40 when I'm 51. I'll just be like, I'm 51 because people are going to like you for who you are, or they're not going to like you for who you are. And that is also inevitable. So I accept it. And if you're going to be in the public eye, and you're going to have a podcast that's visual and you're going to, have a Instagram page, people are going to judge you.
Yep.
And there's a lot, and there's a lot about me. I come in layers, right? And I'm multifaceted, but I don't let everybody in to see everything that I have to offer or that how I feel about things
Why don't you let them
because
in?
because I am guarded. because of my past experiences.
Hmm.
I've been, people, like I said, when you're nice, people mistake your kindness for weakness. Then I got to get aggressive. Then I get aggressive, and now I look like my tattoos and I look like my size. And then people that started out as the aggressor become the victims.
Do you have a fear of being taken advantage of?
100%. 100%. That will never leave me. I don't think. I mean, maybe I could get to a place one day where there's, a real balance, but I'm a New Yorker. New Yorker, that world I came from, that street world, that's really like that. And really in business is like that. People are really greedy. There's an old movie called Scarface, and Tony Montana's like at the table and he's talking to like this big drug dealer. I don't know if it was supposed to be like Escobar or who, but they were like, Tony, don't ever underestimate the next man's greed. And that's like something you could take worldwide. People are really greedy. Like they don't have enough of their own. They need yours too.
It sounds
So
like you don't trust people very much.
I don't. I don't. For a lot of years, um, a lot of people live their lives like he's a friend till he becomes an enemy. I lived my life like he's an enemy until he becomes a friend. And that's really due to location. That's due to the era that I grew up in.
How does it
Like,
feel to live in a world where people aren't very trustworthy?
I don't know. That's all I know, really. That's all I know. Yeah, I got a lot of I've worked on a lot of my traumas and I've healed a lot of traumas and I've moved forward, but that rent is due every day. And there's a trauma in my life that I've never tried to heal. I don't even know if I'm ready to heal it, you know? Um, and I haven't attacked it. And maybe I'll attack it one day. Maybe I won't.
Which
I don't
trauma is
know.
that?
Can't tell you.
Okay, well, I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny because we actually have a lot in common, believe it or not, because I also have trouble trusting people.
Mm.
And I'm wondering, is there a part of you that wants to trust people more?
I wish, if you're asking, do I wish that scenarios were different? Absolutely.
I'm asking if you wish that you trusted people more.
No, I know from experience that's not the way. Everybody has their own agenda. Everybody has their own agenda. And that's really human nature. Like even if you look at animals, right? We don't give enough credit to animals. But if you look at animals, if you look at a pack of lions or a pack of wolves or um they always take out the children and the sick first. There's no respect there. And there's less and less as we go on as generations, there's less and less respect for our elderly. When if you go to Japan, Japan is completely different. The entire culture is completely different. And they care about their elderly. And if you were to disrespect somebody that's elderly, that's disrespecting your entire family.
Do
Like
you
there's
consider
not like,
yourself elderly?
do I consider myself elderly? Hell no. I'm chilling. Yeah, I don't think that's a thing until you're in your 70s
Hmm.
or 80s, maybe.
I agree.
Um, but I think that there's a deficit in this country. There's a deficit of self-discipline.
Why,
People are
why is there a deficit of self-discipline?
because we have quote unquote rights, because we have so many freedoms. But it's
What
hard to balance those freedoms sometimes.
is there a freedom that you feel should be taken away?
Mm, I think maybe amended, not taken away.
Can you give an example?
Mm. Well, I don't know. That becomes a conversation on its own because why are you amending it and where do you wish for society to go if you do amend that freedom? Like there's a there's a reason for everything, right? But what's the end reason? What's the end goal if you do amend that freedom? I don't know. I hadn't really given any thought to that. I'd have to give some thought to that.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to, I'm just thinking about how much we have in common because ever since you mentioned the trust, that's been floating around in my head because like I've also been through a lot and I also have, I don't even want to use the word trouble trusting people because like you, I don't want to trust people more. And it's so interesting because, at the same time, how do you make friends and how do you build a circle if you're constantly not trusting people, if you're constantly putting up walls? How can you expect to get close to people if you're constantly putting up walls?
You have to go into every see. This is a reason why healing traumas is so important, right? Because if you don't heal your past traumas, you bring them
Yep.
every day into every new relationship.
Yep.
And now you're judging and basing that other person's actions on past experiences. And
Yep.
this is why healing is extremely important. Because when you start a new relationship, whether it's a friendship or something intimate or something romantic with someone, you have to go into that with a clean slate. Because if you don't, one, comparison is the thief of joy. That's number one. And two, you're gonna, things are gonna trigger you that you haven't healed, and then you're gonna react in a certain way that would be detrimental to this new relationship because that person is not guilty of what you're thinking or you're comparing them to, and then now they're turned off because you reacted in a certain way or you spoke in a certain tone or the context was lost. And now they're reading that and they're reading it wrong because they don't know you and they don't have any, we call it seat time, right? Like every car is different. I'm going to go off on a tangent here for a second. You might have to reel me back in, but every car is different. And when you go to a track with a car, you can't just get in somebody's car and do amazing things on that track. It's very rare. You got to learn the car. Every
Yep.
car is different, even if it's the same model by the same brand, by the same manufacturer, with the same tires. There's other variables, and you have to learn that car in order to really be we call it a 10 tenths. Nobody drives 10 tenths. Maybe like Formula One car drivers or World Rally Championship drivers, but it's that's hard. Yeah, you to be like at 8 tenths or 7 tenths, you got to learn that car because every it's mechanical and parts wear down and there's variables on the road and sand and oil and wind and maybe your tires don't have enough inflation. So there's a lot of things you got to learn. You got to learn all these things because they affect the drivability of a car.
Y-
But anyway, yeah, if in a relationship, I'm reeling myself back in here. Um, in a relationship, you're responsible for how you treat that person. And there's so many people that are, that have had bad experiences with men, bad experiences with women, and then they're like, okay, I'm single again. Okay, let me get back in the market. Let me get back in the dating market. But if you don't heal those traumas of those bad experiences of girls cheating on you or guys, I don't support any man that hits a woman. I think that's the most cowardly act. Obviously, after touching a child or the elderly or animals. But you know, if you don't get back, if you don't heal those traumas, you're bringing it into this next relationship, and those people are not responsible to fix your traumas and say, "Hey, hold on, wait, I'm different," because they don't know you like that, and you try to tell people, "Hey, but wait, you got to trust me. Wait, but I'm different. Trust me, trust me." But how can they trust you? They don't know you, and they only know what you're showing them. And now you're showing them a diffused a diffused version of you because you haven't healed those traumas because you're still upset because that girl cheated on you and you loved her. And how could she cheat on you? You never cheated on her. You were so good to her. Maybe that's why she cheated, right? Because people have their own issues and they're not voicing them and they're not getting therapy. And they're going through life like I went through life in the beginning, like, or, years ago, where I'd be like, I don't need therapy. You need therapy. You're the one with the problem. But if you're pointing fingers, chances are you have something inside that you haven't healed because you're upset with that person and their perspective on you. And they're taking things out of context or they're misconstruing things because that's how you're coming across. You don't even realize it. Somebody has to get through to you. I'm a Scorpio. I'm like super thick skulled. I'm
Mhm.
like I'm hard headed. So I'm very grateful to the people that have been able to get through and say, hey, wait, what are you doing? Stop acting like that. Act like this. How come you don't act like this? What is preventing you? What caused it? Where's the catalyst? Why did it trigger you? You got to have somebody that doesn't yes you to death. Oh,
Mhm.
these kicks look good. Yo, does this shirt look good? Yo, I look good now. Yo, the haircut's dope. Like, you got to have somebody in your corner that's like, yo, what are you doing, bro? Like, yo, and really calls you on your bullshit. And that's what I like about David Goggins so much. He's no frills. Like, he's super wildly successful. He had a top selling book for like 3 years on the New York Times bestseller list.
Really?
He's a multimillionaire, and he's got all kinds of endorsements from everybody. He's not driving a Ferrari. He has no jewelry on. He has no fancy watch. He just doesn't give a shit. All he cares about is setting a great example for people that don't have that self motivation, that feel stuck. And if you go to his page, there is a ton of hate on it. Oh, you were never a Navy SEAL. I never saw any combat. Did you go to combat? They're just calling him out. But these are people that would never even be accepted in the military. But people just, that's like that society we live in. That's
Yeah.
just, people are just hateful. They don't want to support you. They don't want to be like, like me, if I have a Rolex and, you met Joey yesterday. Joey's like my right hand guy, right? If he doesn't have a Rolex, I don't want to wear the Rolex. I want him to win. And I don't care if I have $5 in my pocket and he has 5 million. I just want him to be happy. I just want him to win. Like that's how I really feel about all my people. Charlie, I want to see Charlie win in whatever aspect that is. Amber, the other guy, Joe, that was sitting there, super nice guy. If I'm friends with you, I want to see you win. There's so many people that are not like me. They're like, oh, if I can't have it, he shouldn't either.
Yep. Yep.
They're like, oh, if I can't get on your boat, well, fuck it, I'm gonna sink it. That's not the way.
Yep.
That's not the way, bro. That is not the way. The way is to work on yourself in whatever capacity that is. And then so you get your mind right first. Then you work on your body, whatever that is, whether it's muscle toning or losing weight or building muscle or being more physically fit or stretching or whatever it is, you work on that. And then when you get those two at a good position, then you align your soul. And that's the trifecta, is to be mind, body, and soul, and to be
Yep.
a great person.
Yep.
But to be a great person to help other people, like what good is all this knowledge, all this reading you're doing all day long, and all this visual stimulus, and all these TikToks you watch, and you're scrolling like 25 fucking miles with your thumb, like, and you got all this information. If you're not sharing and helping other people, what are you doing? Like, I really don't care about how many millions you made and what you spent it on and the girl you fuck. And I really don't care about none of that shit. I care about who you help. Show me somebody you really helped, not just made a anonymous, you made a donation to something and now you're a great person. No, help somebody. It doesn't even cost anything to help somebody. Ask people how they are. Be genuine about it. Just be like, hey, how are you? You okay? It happens to me all the time. I ask people in the supermarket. People in the supermarket don't get paid great salaries. Sometimes they have extenuating circumstances. They have to take that job. In any job, I treat the janitor the same way I treat the CEO.
Yep.
People are people,
Hmm.
and people have issues, and they don't have people to talk to, and they don't know how to voice it or vocalize it themselves. And they have nobody to talk to, and they have nobody that understands or that wants to understand or that wants to put the time into understanding. So, you got me off here I was on a
No,
rant there.
no, listen. I was absorbing everything you were saying. Something you said before, it reminded me of a quote. When you were talking about how we bring our traumas to other people, it reminded me of a quote. If you don't heal your wounds, you're gonna bleed on other people who
Oh,
didn't
a hundred
cause them.
percent. Yes, that is 100%. Absolutely.
You've heard
That
that
that's
quote?
Oh yeah. Yo, that's super, super real. Another great quote actually from Bob Marley. And I'm not a big proponent of Bob Marley, although he was a amazing, a vegan, and he was about holistic and nutritional health, and he had a good message, but and don't hold me to this. Like, don't quote me because I don't know if I'm going to get this wrong in saying it verbatim, but he says something like, everybody's going to hurt you. Find somebody that's worth being hurt by.
Yeah, I've heard that quote. Yeah, I don't remember the exact wording, but it
Right.
is
I don't
true.
know the exact wording, but I know it's that's the gist of it.
It is true. Everyone will hurt you, and it's like in life we have to find this tricky balance of, not trusting people too much, but also trusting people enough to open up ourselves and to
Give
be
people a
vulnerable.
chance. Give people a chance. Let them hang themselves. Like you meet somebody new, you can be kind with them. If really tough people aren't telling other people how many people they beat up or how many people they've killed or whatever it is. They're not doing that. Really rich people are not wearing a lot of jewelry. They don't drive Ferraris. There are some wealthy people that are real drivers and they like that car, and that's fine. But you know, tough guys are not driving lifted trucks and smoking cigars and all that pro masculinity shit. Um, there are tough people in every scenario, but
Uh,
um, if you're really that, you don't have anything to prove to anybody. It's
I'm
okay.
I'm a
It's
very
okay if they
strong
think that.
believer that confidence is quiet.
It is. It is. So is wealth. Wealth is also very quiet. Very quiet. It's like if you're really wealthy, you don't have to buy that Ferrari because you pass the dealership every day and you can buy any Ferrari. So it's the
You could buy the
same,
whole shop.
right? It's the same train of thought of if you're a real New Yorker, you've never been to the top of the Empire State Building because you could go any day, you know?
I've
And
never
it's really
been to
relative.
I've actually never been to the Empire State. Listen, I
There
do have
you
to head
go.
out. I have to head out for work. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, I'm good.
So I'm gonna put all your links below. Make sure you send me your links. I'm gonna put all your links below. All right.
Sure. No problem. I'll give you the Instagram.
All right. It was great talking to
Okay.
you, man.
Yo, likewise. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
We'll have a part two in a few months.
I'm in. Let's see how it does on your channel. See how people react.
All right, boss. Have a good one, man. Take care.
All right, brother.
Take care.